Most men think being friend-zoned means she feels nothing. It doesn't. Sometimes it means she feels too much, too fast, and you reacted in a way that collapsed the tension. That truth is uncomfortable. Sit with it. If you've ever felt her warmth fade after things felt close, this matters because the mistake isn't liking her. It's how you responded when the emotional pressure showed up. Stay with me because by the end of this, you won't read her silence the same way again. Men usually get this wrong because they listen to words instead of energy. She says you're a friend, so you panic. You try to prove value. You explain. You give more. What she actually felt was a shift. The moment you leaned forward emotionally, the balance changed. Attraction needs safety, but it also needs space. When space disappears, curiosity dies. Female attraction isn't logical. It's emotional and responsive. She's drawn to how you hold yourself under pressure. Do you stay grounded when things get close, or do you rush to secure certainty? Safety comes from consistency. Challenge comes from self-control. When both exist, tension stays alive. Here's the part most men miss. When a woman is emotionally invested, she doesn't chase attention. She seeks presence. She notices how you move through silence. She watches if you respect your own rhythm. If you fill every gap with words, you remove her reason to lean in. One early shift is mirroring. She starts matching your tone, your timing, your pace, not because she's copying you, but because alignment feels safe. Another shift is her guard dropping. She shares small truths without drama. This happens when she senses you won't collapse under emotion. Then there's protecting your image. She speaks well of you when you're not there. That's not friendship. That's emotional investment. She's placing you inside her world carefully. You might also notice she chooses presence over attention. She prefers quiet moments instead of constant texting. That's her checking if connection survives without noise. And when you don't rush to fill that space, something important happens. Respect for silence appears. She doesn't punish you for pauses. She becomes curious about them. Silence becomes a signal of self-respect, not distance. If you've overgiven before, hear this. You weren't weak. You lost your frame because you wanted certainty. Most men do. Confusion hurts, pullbacks sting. But reacting emotionally teaches her that closeness overwhelms you. This isn't about tricks, it's about composure. Stillness creates emotional tension because it shows you trust yourself. When you stop chasing clarity from her, clarity returns to you. You don't win her by proving, you win yourself by staying grounded. And that shift is what changes everything. Tonight, let this land slowly. You don't need answers right now. You need steadiness. Now you'll see why one specific response keeps attraction alive, even when she pulls back, and why restraint speaks louder than effort. Pay attention to how you hold yourself when uncertainty appears. When she pulls back, most men rush forward. That reaction feels natural. It's also what quietly breaks attraction. What she's testing in that moment isn't your interest. She already knows you care. She's watching how you regulate yourself when closeness creates pressure. Do you stay centered or do you seek relief from her attention? That difference decides whether tension survives. Here's the truth. Emotional pullbacks aren't rejection. They're recalibration. She's checking if connection still feels safe when intensity rises. If you chase reassurance, you answer that question for her. You tell her that closeness makes you anxious. Anxiety doesn't feel safe. It feels heavy. One hidden shift appears in how she aligns emotionally. She starts syncing her moods with yours. When you're calm, she settles. When you're reactive, she distances. This isn't manipulation, it's instinct. Women are drawn to emotional steadiness because it signals reliability under stress. Another shift is nurturing behavior. She remembers small details. She checks in without reason. She softens her tone. This happens when she feels you don't need her to feel whole. Need creates pressure. Independence creates room. Pay attention to how she treats your silence. If she respects it, attraction is alive. If she fills it nervously, she's unsure. If she punishes it, tension has already collapsed. Silence only works when it's natural, not as a move, as a reflection of self-respect. Many men overgive because they confuse effort with value. They think consistency means constant availability. It doesn't. Consistency is emotional reliability, not endless presence. When you give too much too fast, you remove contrast. Without contrast, desire fades into comfort. If you've been the man who showed up every time, listened endlessly, and still felt pushed aside, this isn't an attack on you. You cared. That matters. But care without boundaries dissolves polarity. Attraction needs polarity to breathe. Stillness is misunderstood. It's not withdrawal. It's restraint. It shows you can hold emotion without spilling it. That's rare. That's attractive. When you stop chasing clarity from her reactions, you regain clarity inside yourself. You move slower. You speak less. Your presence becomes heavier without effort. She feels that shift before she understands it. This is where quiet control begins. Not by doing less to provoke her, but by needing less from her. When your center stays intact, curiosity returns naturally. So next, we'll go deeper into the exact moment men usually lose frame, and how one subtle change in how you respond keeps emotional tension alive without saying a word. Until then, notice how you handle uncertainty. That's where attraction either stabilizes or slips away. There's a moment most men don't notice when it happens. It feels small, almost harmless, but it's where attraction quietly shifts. It's the moment you explain yourself when you didn't need to. You feel her energy change, so you justify. You clarify your intentions. You soften your edge to keep the connection safe. What you don't realize is that safety was never the problem. Attraction weakens when emotional leadership disappears. Not dominance, leadership. The ability to stay steady when the emotional temperature changes. When she feels something real, it creates internal conflict. Desire brings vulnerability. Vulnerability brings risk. So she pulls back slightly to see what happens next. This is where many men fail the test without knowing there was one. They respond with urgency. More texts, more availability, more reassurance. Each response is logical. Each response lowers tension. One of the deepest shifts happens when she starts protecting your emotional space. She doesn't push you to open up. She allows silence. She senses you can hold your own emotions without leaning on her. That's when respect deepens. Another shift is emotional alignment. She doesn't just listen to you. She feels with you. Your calm becomes her calm. Your grounded tone regulates the interaction. This only happens when you're not trying to manage her feelings. Men who lose frame often do it out of fear of loss. They sense distance and try to close it. But distance isn't the enemy. Loss of self is. Stillness works because it shows trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust that you don't need to secure outcomes emotionally. That trust is felt, not heard. This doesn't mean becoming cold. Coldness is emotional shutdown. Stillness is emotional containment. You feel everything, you just don't spill it. If you've ever wondered why being nice didn't work, this is why. Niceness without self-respect feels fragile. It asks for approval instead of offering presence. Presence is what creates pull. You don't need to disappear. You don't need to perform. You need to stay rooted in yourself when uncertainty shows up. That's the moment she's watching most closely. When you stop trying to manage her perception, she starts leaning back in on her own. Not because you did something, but because you didn't abandon yourself. This is the quiet power most men never learn. Not control over her, control over your reactions. So now we'll bring this together. Not into tactics, into identity. Because the real shift happens when you stop asking whether she wants you and start noticing how you show up when you're unsure. At some point, the question stops being about her. That's when things finally change. When you're no longer scanning her tone for clues. When you're no longer measuring your value by her response time. When silence doesn't feel like danger, but like space you can stand in. This is the identity shift most men never make. They stay focused on winning her back instead of returning to themselves. But attraction doesn't grow from pursuit. It grows from self-respect that doesn't ask for permission. When you choose yourself, something subtle happens. Your attention becomes selective. You're present, but not chasing. Interested, but not attached to outcomes. That balance is felt immediately. She notices when you don't overreact, when you don't explain your worth, when you don't rush to fix emotional gaps, not because you're playing a role, but because you trust your own center. This is where quiet power lives, not in control, in composure. If she leans in again, it's because the space felt safe enough for desire to return. If she doesn't, you haven't lost anything. You've gained clarity, and clarity protects your self-respect. Most men stay stuck because they think attraction is about effort. It's not. It's about orientation, how you hold yourself when things are uncertain, how you respond when emotions fluctuate, how you treat your own time and energy. You don't need to punish silence. You don't need to reward attention. You simply stay aligned with who you are. That's what stabilizes attraction when it's real. If you felt overlooked, misunderstood, or quietly replaced, this isn't your failure. It's a lesson most men were never taught. You weren't wrong for caring, you just didn't know how to stay grounded while caring. From this point on, the goal isn't to decode her behavior, it's to notice yours. Do you abandon yourself when you feel unsure? Or do you remain steady and observant? That choice changes everything. Attraction responds to the man who doesn't collapse under emotional pressure, the man who doesn't rush to secure certainty, the man who can sit in silence without losing himself. That man doesn't need to chase clarity. Clarity comes to him. So ask yourself, honestly, are you still trying to escape the friend zone by proving something to her? Or are you finally stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't need validation to feel whole? Sit with that tonight. Let it reshape how you move. Because when you choose yourself, attraction either follows or becomes irrelevant. Now you don't need to force anything after this. No moves, no messages sent just to feel relief, just awareness. Notice how differently you feel when you stop chasing clarity. Notice how silence stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like space you can stand in. Attraction isn't something you grab. It responds to how you hold yourself when nothing is guaranteed. If this made you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Growth always does. If you're working on becoming more grounded instead of more reactive, subscribe. This channel is for men who want clarity, not tricks. And if something in this hit closer than you expected, leave a comment. Not to explain, just to acknowledge where you are right now. Are you reacting to her behavior, or are you finally choosing how you show up no matter what she does? That choice changes everything.